Good morning, everyone. It's good to see so many people here bright-eyed and bushy-tailed after a fantastic gala dinner last night. Welcome back. And I have two things to do first today. One is just to sort of quickly reprise what was a very full day yesterday, both on this stage and on the other stages around the conference. I think we had some really great contributions. On this stage, we had, I think, a really strong thread running through much of what we heard about the possibilities and opportunities of integration of both care delivery systems and the system of governance of our health and care system here across the UK. And we, I think, really got off to an amazing start with Kay Smith and the powerful message that she delivered on this stage yesterday about how technology, particularly how VR, had enabled her to fulfill her bucket list and give her back herself. And I thought that was a really moving contribution, but also I think speaks to something about how we as an organisation need to be putting front and centre the voice and experience of people who are using services. And then we heard from David Pearson, who set out the challenge of population health and the opportunities of that and the need to understand data. And we also heard George Crooks railing against us, perhaps talking too much about data and not perhaps enough about the essential need to make sure that data is understandable, accessible, usable and actionable. And I thought that was an important part of the messaging yesterday. And that also linked to the question of trust, which came up in some of the questions. Trust about the data itself, how it's used, who has access to it. And I think a really good conversation about dynamic consent models around people's ability to decide whether they are opting in or opting out of data being used for various purposes. And we also heard, I think, some quite contrasting developments from Scotland and England when it comes to approaches to accessing that data. The locator scheme in England and the multi-layered approach that George described when it comes to getting access to not just public sector generated data, but actually data generated by citizens by a whole plethora of smart devices of one sort or another. And then finally, the panel discussion we had here on the stage, looking at the opportunities and the potential for a consumer market. And I think the point there, again, about people's expectations of us as an industry running well ahead perhaps of where we actually are at the moment, given their everyday experience of the way in which technology has transformed so much of our economy and so much of our everyday lives. So how we learn from that and how we convert it into our agenda, I think, is the key part. So today, we're focusing on a number of different threads. We're going to get some updates when it comes to issues around the digital switch, the switch off of analog telephony services, and we'll be hearing shortly from Hugh Saunders on that. We're going to be getting an international perspective from our colleagues at Tunstall Tollevida, talking about the Barcelona experience. And we're also going to be getting some domestic examples of great innovation, experimentation and learning as well from Steve Careful and others.